Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the BFG podcast. As always, I'm here with Garrett.
Shut up.
So this week we're going to be talking about our respective favorite movies, Garrett's favorite movie and my favorite movie.
Yeah.
But before we start that, we have a few questions for each other that we've worked out for the week. Would you like to begin or would you like me to?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So my first question is, what's your favorite foreign film? Shaun of the Dead doesn't count. Non-English speaking.
Non-English speaking. Okay. That's tough. It'd probably be, so I've watched a lot of foreign horror films. That's kind of the big thing for me just in general. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
Just about kind of how I resonate with horror films. I really like the original version of a lot of Japanese and Korean horror films.
Yeah.
They try to bring them over here, and some of them work better than others. You know, movies like The Ring and The Grudge obviously made waves. Yeah, back when they came out. But the original movies like Ju-on and Ringu are, I'd say, at least as effective, if not more, because I think those focus more on kind of the folklore aspect and the cultural aspect. So they might not be quite as jump scares and in your face. Yeah. But I think I like that.
I do like Gore Verbinski's Ring though. Yeah.
No, it's definitely a good movie. But I'm just saying, I think that the sometimes the restraint of the originals are superior to me.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Or maybe... Oh, was it you I was talking to recently about Shudder?
Yeah, I think you were.
I really like the original version of Shudder. I feel like that's not just a more effective version of the movie, but an actual good movie. Where the American version made it kind of lame and boring. The original Shudder was a really good... a really good movie, kind of showing the sorrow and the consequences that follow the choices in the movie. Yeah. Rather than just focusing on the scares. Yeah. And then to go along with that, One Missed Call. One Missed Call is a lot better in its original form than what we get here.
Yeah, of course. That's to be expected.
Yeah. But yeah, I think maybe Shudder.
Wow. Okay.
I like Shudder a lot.
Yeah, cool. Mine's violent.
Yeah,
anyway.
I kind of figured.
Yeah. Norwegian Canadian movie. Give it a watch. Okay. Your turn.
So Garrett, what movie scene choked you up the most?
Choked me up, got me to almost cry?
Yeah.
There's a couple that tend to get me pretty often. I remember when I was, I don't know, I probably would have been 13, and I watched The Road for the first time on my phone, and maybe 14.
Viggo Mortensen?
The Viggo Mortensen one, and when Viggo Mortensen died and the kid was left alone, that got me. But I haven't seen the movie since then. And but I guess the easiest answer for me would probably be Black Swan at the end when she dies, just because you know what she's going through and all that. And
I'm always a sucker for the ending of Coco.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Coco's great. I love Coco.
But especially the end there where he's singing to his grandmother.
Yeah. My next question is there something in movies that something that happens that will turn you off immediately to a movie?
So I've seen my fair share of raunchy comedies and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think what bugs me is just senseless sex. Whenever it doesn't especially in raunchy comedies when it just feels like that's supposed to be the gag. Yeah. Is that, this guy's a nerd, but the hot girl likes him. Yeah. Or, they both got drunk and they slept together, and that's what's funny.
Yeah.
It's the same thing like with horror too. Whenever you have like horror comedies and the gag is supposed to be, this is like needlessly gory. That's not humor. That's not funny. You're just making it gross to try to shock people into like huffing breath out, Yeah. And so it's like, it's stuff like that. Whenever I guess just like the lowest common denominator sort of like humor or gag to try to like shock people or force people into a cheap laugh. That always like really turns me off.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That is stupid. Like all the scary movies are huge parts of that. And like all those like raunchy comedies from like the early 2000s and like the late 90s,
and that was a huge deal for a little bit, and it drove me nuts.
That was all that was being made. Terrible.
And it like they weren't even clever like with the titles, you know. It was after the scary movies. It was epic movie
43 and stuff like that,
and it was just like,
I hate those movies. They're all so not funny. I really like or dislike stereotypical or pretentious dialogue. Either of those two. Those will immediately turn me off. Like in a ghost story, I love everything, but when it gets to that scene of the fucking hipster like just talking and like explaining his view on the world or universe and all that, I almost I just kind of like tend to look away whenever that scene's going on. Cause I love everything else, but I hate that scene and I hate the dialogue in that. Just so unnecessary. Oh, and a lot of needless exposition. Can't stand that.
All right, so my next question for you is, and it kind of goes along with yours actually, just by coincidence. What do you think is the most overrated movie?
Well, that's hard. It would probably have to be an older film, but at the same time, there's a lot of movies that like I call like I would say are overrated, but like from like a general population standpoint, not like a real like from like the like movie community standpoint. That's where I'm trying to look at it from here. I don't think Citizen Kane is as overrated as everyone says it is, because I feel like a lot of people say Citizen Kane is overrated to the point where, that line is becoming kind of a cliche.
Yeah, like it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah. But like maybe, honestly, maybe The Dark Knight.
Okay.
I really enjoy The Dark Knight. But like, I don't love it as much as like everyone else would. Yeah. Like I'm not like a huge superhero guy, so that might be it, but I don't know. I like the filmmaking in it. I think the filmmaking is good.
Like Christopher Nolan is clearly very talented.
Yeah, and I like his movies, but I don't like I don't love his movies like a ton, but I really do think he's a very talented, good filmmaker.
Yeah.
But like, his stuff just like isn't exactly tailored for me all the time.
Yeah. I think mine would probably just be one of those well-regarded comedies from like the last 15-20 years. I might say Superbad, but I know that
you'd be wrong if you said Superbad. It was a classic.
Or I might say pretty much any of those string of like Will Ferrell movies when he was in his prime.
I don't think they're very funny either. Oh, Anchorman is a huge one that I find way overrated. I don't think that was funny.
Anchorman I didn't like. Talladega Nights I didn't like. That one, like hockey one, I didn't like. Blades of Glory.
Oh, that's
not hockey, ice skating. But Blades of Glory, so on and so forth. Like he has all these movies that just don't appeal to me like at all. And those were huge at the time. Yeah. Like everybody was talking about the new Will Ferrell movies, and I was just like,
who cares?
Even like the people, because it was like watching the movies was bad. But then like even hearing the people quote them when we would be like sitting around, wherever, like in high school or out with friends or something, and they'd all be like quoting the lines and laughing about it. I'd be like, why are you laughing? Yeah. Even like hearing you re-quote them, it's not funny to me.
Okay, so is there a director whose work you just don't like and you'll never watch or just avoid all around?
There's one that immediately comes to mind with one caveat. Lars von Trier.
Oh, I don't blame you. Yeah.
I do not like the way the movies are made, and I do not like the content or the subject matter most of the time or anything about them, except the house that Jack built. I would not have even given it like the time of day if it weren't for the fact that you recommended it to me, because I was like, hey, you know, I'm looking for new horror movies and stuff like that to watch, but I'm looking for something that I probably haven't seen before because I've seen a lot of horror movies.
Yeah.
And you were like, Lars von Trier has this one movie called The House That Jack Built, and I found it and I watched it and it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's great. It's very disturbing, but not in the same way as a lot of his other movies are disturbing.
Yeah,
because like Antichrist is just like kind of disgustingly disturbing. Yeah, but in a weird kind of like vaguely beautiful way, but only with like the composition and stuff like that, not so much like the subject matter and everything taking in place. But yeah, I still want to see Dancer in the Dark. I feel like Dancer in the Dark would be really interesting. But
outside of that, I just have I don't like his stuff that I've seen, and I don't have any interest in watching anything else.
Yeah.
When you ask me about a director I do not like, Trier is the one that immediately comes to mind.
Yeah, I don't know if I really have one. I don't really care for just had it in my head.
Another good one. I don't like actively dislike his stuff the way that I feel about Lars von Trier sometimes.
Yeah.
But one that I just have zero interest in, one that I continuously see and continuously am just kind of meh about, is Michael Bay.
Oh, Michael Bay, that's a good one. Michael
Bay is...
Yeah, I have no interest in Michael Bay movies at all. Yeah. Like, I don't want to watch them. I feel... I don't like them. There's no point. No point to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. I don't really have one, so... Yeah.
Okay. So next is, what movies have you watched recently? And are there any that you'd like to recommend that we probably won't cover in an episode?
Yeah. I've been trying to catch up on a lot of stuff from film festivals, mainly French cinema. So I watched the movie that won the Palme d'Or recently, Titan, which is made by the same director of Raw, which I don't know if you've seen Raw or not.
Yeah, like you're talking about the horror movie, right?
Yeah.
Where she just has a taste for human flesh.
Exactly, yeah. So I just watched Titan, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Which is
Julia
also
Ducournau.
like, this is also like kind of a horror thriller in some regard.
It is very much more psychological, I'd say.
Okay.
And like honestly, it's got like a good amount of comedy in it.
Okay.
Surprisingly, because there's like legit a couple scenes where I laughed out loud. One of them, I don't know if it was meant to laugh out loud at it. It probably was. I probably was, knowing this movie, but it's very interesting and definitely different. Like extremely different.
Yeah.
And it's very well acted. The script, I love the script. But like the concepts and all that going on in this movie are so weird that like it's kind of hard to recommend it. I was sitting at work and explaining it all to Casey, and I felt so bad. I kept apologizing when I'd say another thing that happened, because I'd be like, oh, this is so weird, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, no, you're fine. And I'd be like, okay.
Which is...
She fucked a car.
What?
Yeah.
That's more or less what I've heard about Lamb, too, which I haven't seen yet, but everybody keeps saying I need to see Lamb, but I need to know nothing about it before I go see Lamb.
Yeah. I'm also interested in seeing Lamb, definitely, but I feel like this... I don't know if Lamb would get as weird as this movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But, so that, I haven't finished Annette yet, but I've been watching Annette. I watched it last night while doing homework. And it was, again, very weird. Not as, like, shockingly or disturbingly weird as Titan, but definitely odd. And there's a few movies that I've been dying to see recently, and they're both it's mainly just there's a couple of them. They're both French. One of them is Petite Maman by Céline Sciamma, the lady that did Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Okay.
And another one of them is Vortex by Gaspar Noé, who his stuff I haven't seen any of his movies, but I know that a lot of them are very psychedelic and odd. But this one, because I read a couple interviews with him, and he said that he almost died. He had a brain hemorrhage, and he survived it. And then he got sober because he used to do like a lot of drugs, and decided to make this movie about a couple, when one of them being stricken with dementia. And I love that subject matter. Alzheimer's runs in my family, so it's like very close to me. And apparently the stylistic choices in it are very interesting. But like I love the thought of like, you know, having this movie made and having it made with care and love and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see this movie. But those are the two main movies I've watched recently.
Okay. I think the big one for me, kind of calling back to your previous questions, it's called The Closet. And it is a Korean horror movie about a girl that goes missing like in her own home. And nobody... You know, they've got like video footage showing that like she never left the house, but she's just gone. And you see this guy like in a bar watching the news story about it, and shows up at the father's house, pretending to be like an internet repair technician. Yeah. And then the actual like repair technician shows up. So the guy goes in, you know, he's like, "What are you doing in my house?" And it turns out that he's an exorcist who's coming in to try to like find the daughter and save her. And it's weird because like the first like 30 minutes of the movie is this very kind of like dour, self-serious film about like kind of the relationship between the dad and the daughter and why, you know, they don't like each other and stuff like that. And you know, this is like a little girl. She's maybe like 6, 7. And then as soon as the exorcist shows up, it becomes like kind of this eccentric like quasi comedy, because the exorcist is like this goofy character who does things like, you know, dress up as a repair technician. And so, you know, he comes in and he's like, "Hey, I'm here to repair your internet." And, you know,
with a New York accent.
Yeah, he's kind of like this goofy guy coming in and doing this. But then as soon as he reveals himself to be the exorcist, he's like this serious guy. But then he starts doing like goofy things again. Like, you know, he goes into the girl's room and he's like poking around at stuff and things like that. And he opens up, because a little girl played violin, and he opens up the music book that she like writes her music in and reads music from.
Hold on, real quick. Spoilers.
No, this isn't really even a spoiler.
Oh, okay.
This is just like a goofy moment. He goes and opens up the book, and there's a picture in the book, and he's like, you know, "Oh, this could help me." And he starts to rip it out, and like as he goes to rip it out, the father's like, "Oh, hey, if you're looking around in there, don't rip anything out of that book." And you see just this like wah wah moment where he's like sitting there with like a half ripped page. His eyes go all wide, and he like quietly tries to like push the page back in and like close it so that the guy won't notice and stuff like that, you know. And it's like that's kind of like the thing like with the exorcist guy. And then like 3/4, maybe even like 4/5, like right toward the end of the movie, it kind of turns back around. They're like, "Oh yeah, we need to focus on like, you know, saving the daughter and solving this mystery and stuff." But there's like this like huge part in the middle where it's almost like this, like it's still like
a screwball comedy kind
of like it's still supposed to be kind of like a horror movie, but for a solid like hour in the middle of the movie, it just kind of becomes like this goofy buddy comedy with this dad and this like goofy exorcist. And then it kind of becomes like serious again toward the end. But that was like weirdly a lot of fun. And again, for the sake of not giving any spoilers, I won't tell you how it ended. It didn't really stick the landing for me. I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, but I liked the journey to get there. It was an entertaining movie. So that was like my big one for the week. I really enjoyed that.
That's awesome. That was a great question. Wow. Okay, I'll move on to my next one now. Do you have like a favorite movie title? Because I've noticed like with me, there'll be something where like I'm not really interested in like the art itself that's being put on screen or like music being put out there, but the title, I'll love the title of it. So I don't know if it's the same for you, but that's like, you know, thing for me.
So, I mean, yeah, but a lot of times I feel like that's misleading. I feel like a lot of times what'll happen is some of my favorite movie titles end up being like some of my least favorite movies in execution.
Yeah.
Because the movies that are kind of like wacky and out there and make me want to watch the movie turn out to be kind of like, oh, well, the title was the most interesting part.
Yeah.
And there was kind of a string of that, I think, maybe 15 years ago. They had these movies like, I think it was like John Tucker Must Die or something like that.
I remember that, yeah.
And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. And the movie was just awful. And it was even marketed awful. It was very like mid 2000s. Yeah. If I remember right, the poster for it was like just the backside of a woman, and she's wearing like underwear and a t-shirt or something like that.
Yeah.
But she's like holding a knife behind her back too, or something like that.
That sounds like everything I Spit on Your Grave or something like that. Yeah, it's probably a parody on that.
It might be. And like I remember even looking at it thinking that's going to be bad. But the title John Tucker Must Die was kind of like, oh, that's fun. Yeah. And then similarly, I think there was a movie called like John Dies at the End.
I remember that one coming out too, yeah.
And I was like, that's intriguing just because it's like, is the movie really going to give up its big ending twist, Which I don't remember that one just much in general. I remember it being like very surreal, like a very oddball kind of movie, but I don't remember much about it. I don't even remember if I liked it or not. I just have like quick glimpses of like that title and then like one scene where they're in some sort of like afterlife or like translucent cave or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's basically my entire memory of that movie. But it's like stuff like that, those wacky, or like, do you know Psycho Goreman?
Yeah, that's one that came out recently, isn't it?
Yeah, that was just like,
I feel like that's one by the guys that did like The Editor and the Father or something like that.
I'm not sure. I don't know a whole lot about like the process behind it.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those that kind of came out of nowhere, and it was like looking at the cover, I'm like, like this looks like one of those just exploitation kind of like gore fests.
Yeah.
And, it's called Psycho Goreman. It's like you have this expectation going in, and that was kind of like a really subversive movie for me. Because basically the idea is there's like this world ending like deity.
Yeah.
That these two kids accidentally dig up his... It's not like actually his heart. It's like a crystal, but it's supposed to be kind of like his heart, his spirit. They dig it up in their backyard accidentally when they're playing. And it turns out that they can control him using that. So, they dig this up and it like activates him. So he comes back and he's like, I'm going to destroy the world.
Oh my God.
And these two little kids are like, no, you're not. We got your heart. And he's like, oh, dang it. So it's basically like this like, again, it's kind of like this weird buddy comedy where like these two kids just have this like world-ending deity like locked up in a warehouse 10 minutes from their home, and they're like they're making him do like goofy things and be their friend and play with them and stuff like that.
That sounds like a Frosty the Snowman thing.
Kind of. It's like if Frosty the Snowman was an evil entity.
That's a great one. I have a few for movies that I like legitimately enjoyed. One of the older ones I love is The Eyes of Laura Mars.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like not only like an interesting movie, but also like I love the title of it.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of them I was looking at on Letterboxd. By the way, I noticed that you don't follow me on Letterboxd, which is messed up, dude.
No, I also don't update it as often as I should. No. It's one of those, I'll remember it like 2 or 3 weeks later, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I'll try to like pop in like the 5 or 6 movies I've seen, and then I won't touch it again for like another month.
Me too. Same, but I always follow you. That's the difference. You're not even gonna like follow me now or something.
I'll have to do that.
Okay. Well, I guess
I'll do that now.
Please
I'll do that now.
Yeah,
while you talk about your movies.
Okay. But I love titles like At Eternity's Gate. I love that. I also enjoyed the film. Under the Silver Lake. Oh my God, absolutely love that.
I guess I should mention. It reminded me when you were talking about the movies that you were like focusing on the house that Jack built.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah,
and I love that title, and I love how it ties into the movie and kind of its climax.
Me too. That's great. Oh man, I'm looking at all these like movies on Letterboxd and how many movies I want to like watch and talk about for the podcast. There was another one that I just saw that I wanted to say. Oh, that's right. Transformers 2: Revenge of the Fallen. Really love that one.
Wait, is that a joke?
Yeah, it's a joke. Don't worry.
Okay.
But one of them is a title. It was the title of Moonlight before they changed it to just Moonlight. It was, and it's a line in the movie as well. It was originally going to be called In the Moonlight, Black Boys Look Blue. And I think that title is like poetic and like an odd title for sure, but beautiful.
Yeah.
In a way, especially knowing the film and the subject matter behind it.
Yeah.
So I would have loved that if they named it that, but I understand why they called it Moonlight, and I still love the title of Moonlight. Mm-hmm. But that would have been great.
Yeah. So my number 4 is what was your favorite movie-going experience?
So yeah, my favorite viewing experience would either have to be Waves, because it was just me and my friend and one other guy in the theater, and we got to like just watch the whole thing like in there basically alone, and it was like really good time to like just have fun, and we could like joke around watching it but still like enjoy the film with the great audio and visual parts of it. But another one would have to be The Lighthouse, which like oh my god, when you leave the theater after watching The Lighthouse, it is you see the world a different way, and your eyes have to like readjust to everything, and it felt somewhat similar with Midsommar, but you know, I think The Lighthouse had more of a lasting effect after seeing it. I think
because did you and Logan go see The Lighthouse?
We saw it twice.
Okay, because I went with you guys to see Midsommar.
Yeah,
and
Midsommar. Yeah,
and I remember coming out of that movie, and all three of us just kind of
we were like, whoa.
Yeah, like walking out, like, what do you think? And we were like, I don't know. What do you think? And we're just like, we need to wait a little bit. Nobody wants to talk about this yet. Nobody wants to be the
stood
first
outside the theater for like probably over an hour talking about that movie.
Yeah,
just standing there, even though like it was like 10-11 o'clock and we were all like super tired and needed to go home, and it was like the theater was pretty far away from like where we actually lived, and still we were just standing there like, oh my god, Midsommar.
Yeah, that movie is a lot.
It is, yeah. But definitely probably The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse, even though I had a ton of fun watching Waves. Probably The Lighthouse, just because of the effect it had afterwards.
So mine would have been 2016. Partially because of the experience, and partially because of the movies, and also partially because of Anton Yelchin.
Oh, is it Green Room?
It was, but it was, so there was a period where there were all these movies that were coming out that I wanted to see, but Haven didn't. And, you know, that happens a lot, but it kept building up. And so in 2016, there were a few times, because I had like the movie club and stuff like that, that I would just like go see movies. And I'd be like, you know what, I'm just going to go do like a double feature. And I'm just going to spend the day at the theater and stuff like this. And so that day I went to the theater and I watched The Nice Guys.
Shane Black.
Shane Black?
He's the guy that directed it.
Yes. Yeah. Shane Black, and then it was Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. A surprisingly like fun like period piece.
Yeah, leading up to it, I didn't expect much from it.
Yeah, but no, it ended up being pretty good. And then I followed that up immediately with Green Room, with Anton Yelchin and Patrick Stewart, Imogen Heap.
Imogen Poots. Imogen Poots.
Right.
Imogen Heap, which is a funny name.
Yeah, either way you cut it. But I went to see both of those like back to back.
I'm thinking about Imogen Poots now. What were they thinking?
But I saw both of those, and first of all, I was a huge fan of Anton Yelchin.
Yeah.
And you know, I was thinking like I was all excited and thinking this is going to be great. You know, like he's got his whole career ahead of him, this promising young man. So, and you know, it was awful what happened, but. So that was like, I was excited for it because of the movie, but also because of Anton Yelchin. And so when I got into The Nice Guys, it was me and like two couples, and I think like one other like older guy. And that was it. It was basically an empty theater. And so I went and did that. And then after The Nice Guys, I had like 20 minutes. So I went to the bathroom, refilled all my stuff, and went over to Green Room.
Yeah.
Green Room was dead empty. It was just I was the only one that bought a ticket to that showing. So I just like kicked back and enjoyed it. It was like, normally I don't condone this kind of behavior, but I put my feet up on the seat in front of me because I'm like, who am I bothering? And I watched Green Room just all by myself in this theater. And it was just such a good experience because the movies were both good. I didn't feel like, you know, I was like crowded in or there were like rude people or anything. Yeah. And it was just, it felt special because it was one of Anton Yelchin's final performances. Yeah. Yeah. So being there and seeing that in theaters like kind of felt more special after realizing what had happened to him. Yeah.
That was amazing. I love the movie. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine having the whole theater to yourself. Yeah, being able to enjoy that sounds so great. Mm-hmm. Just sitting there like talking on your phone, watching the movie and all that. And you're like, who's gonna complain? But yeah, that's good.
I just go out there and I'm like, hey, there's kind of a rowdy gentleman in my showing, and then he comes in and I'm like, it's me.
It was me because I could do whatever I want in here. But I remember when I went to see Parasite with Logan, and it was us, and then like a ton of old people, like legit elders, just watching the movie, and we were like, what are all these old people doing in here? Like, did they just go to the wrong viewing, or do they know what they're gonna see? And we watched it, and then like everyone got up, and they were like, yeah, it was really good. And I was like, oh my god, these are just like really old movie buffs. That was so cool. That was fun. Mm-hmm. My last question is, do you think the MPAA is a competent and fair rating system, or has a competent and fair rating system? No. Just no. Explain. No. Yeah.
I think it's all just so arbitrary.
It is.
There are movies that I feel like should have gotten a heavier rating that just don't because they're being too lenient on it. Mm-hmm. And then there are movies that I think get like an R rating that are just kind of senseless. Yeah. That easily could have gotten away with a PG-13. There have been once or twice where I watch it and I'm like, I feel like that's almost like a PG movie depending on who watches it. Yeah. But all of a sudden it's an R rating because, you know, the really strict person watched it instead of the really lenient person. Yeah. Because, you know, it's this whole board of people watching these movies, and it's all about how they feel because I mean there are like hard rules, you know, like like there are a certain number of certain swear words that
I find so stupid.
Yeah, it's like they're not just saying you can't say these words. It's like you can say this word, but you can only say it like twice or something like that. And
because so, like 3 times, oh my god, 3 times,
then it's worth getting a higher rating. So that's weird to me. But like at least those are hard rules. Whereas with a lot of other stuff, it's like, you know, there's not like a specific like censorship rule. Yeah. It's all completely subjective. And so depending on who's watching it, what kind of day they're having, how much they enjoy the movie, like
it makes no sense. I definitely prefer like the Canadian or the UK version of rating things. I think it's clearly better. Yeah. Or like the French version. They put so much stuff in their movies. Oh my god. I don't know how they do it. But yeah, that was my question, so I completely agree with you.
Okay. In my last one, which kind of goes along with what I was saying about going to these like double features and stuff. Do you like to binge movies, or do you kind of like to just watch a movie and then take a little bit?
It happens pretty often where like if I'm sitting there and like I have to do homework all day, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna have homework on this monitor or this side of the monitor and then movie on this side. Yeah. So I'm just like, you know, watching it, or like it's when I had a film class and we'd have to watch a ton of movies. I just like sit there and just binge all the movies in like one day. Yeah. All these great like classic movies. And that was really fun. But it takes a lot for me to like get into that mood where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to literally just watch movies the entire time. Yeah. Because, you know, most days I'm busy. So I can't just sit there and watch movies. And then like if I'm not busy, then you know, there's other things that like I have to prioritize before watching a bunch of movies. Yeah. So it's hard to find the time, but when I do get into that mood or get into that like mode with it. It's I have so much fun with it.
Yeah,
there have been times I've watched like 4 or 5 movies in a day, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, I think for me, it's very subjective based on what I'm watching. So like, I can watch like, you know, a bunch of cheap horror movies in a row.
Yeah. Or
like shortly after Luna was born, I was watching through the Fast and Furious movies. Yeah. Like, you know, with Luna. Yeah. Quote unquote.
She was there.
Yeah. And she was definitely interested. Like, I've got little videos. If you go look like on my Instagram and stuff, I think I might have put it on the BFG Instagram too.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like videos of her just like, like staring at this bombastic action sequence and stuff. But you know, like I can sit and watch these like mindless action movies or like cheap horror movies and stuff like that all day long. Yeah. But then, you know, it's like after I watch an Aronofsky movie or something like that,
you want to digest.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, oh, I need to go like.
I need to go lie down.
Yeah. Or, you know, something like eat a meal or.
Yeah.
You
just
know.
Think.
Yeah, really. Just something I can do where I can let my brain work for a little bit. I can't just jump into another big movie like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I draw the line. Is I think it depends on the kind of movie I'm watching.
Yeah, definitely.
But with that said, I think that's our 5 questions.
That's our 5 questions.
5 and 5.
Yeah. So good job, guys. Good job.
With that done, would you like to talk about Black Swan, or would you like to talk about Shaun of the Dead?
Well, you know I like to talk about Black Swan any day.
Yeah.
But maybe actually that'd be a good idea since we rewatched Shaun of the Dead like just like a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
And but we both had seen Black Swan like really recently, so we kind of didn't have to rewatch it to know like what our score and all that would be. And I think we've both seen it multiple times anyways. But I think let's just start with Black Swan since like we're probably gonna have more to say about Shaun of the Dead since it happened now happened.
All right, so we'll start with Black Swan. If you're not aware, we at the BFG podcast use the BFG podcast. We use a custom ranking system created by us, by me, called the WAPMASTer. It covers 10 different technical categories of the movie making process and how much we enjoyed each one, as well as just a subjective category at the end for how much we enjoyed the film. Each category can be worth up to 10 points for a total score of up to 100 or as low as 10. So far in our episodes, we have not reached that elusive like perfect 100 or the almost equally as elusive perfect 10. We've gotten pretty close, but not quite there.
We've gotten way close. I don't know, actually.
4 or 5 points away.
I've gotten because I rated the Dirties a 92, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's like probably that might have been the closest. And I think you might have rated the Green Knight 92 as well.
Yeah, but that didn't make it into.
Oh, that's right. Production. Yeah, we didn't do that. Yeah,
we did an episode on the Green Knight. That was one of our first episodes, and it didn't actually make it onto the onto any platforms because the episode was messed up,
unsalvageable.
Yeah, not really. We had 2 or 3 episodes like that for whatever reason, whether it be audio glitches or the recording process got borked halfway through. Yeah. Just for different reasons, we had to let go of a couple episodes early on before we got into our groove.
The 2 episodes we put the most effort into. We watched like 12 movies in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we dedicated a lot to these movies.
And we couldn't even upload them.
Yeah.
So that sucks, but oh well.
All right. But with all that said, WAPMASTer is an acronym for those 10 different technical categories, and we will explain them as we go, starting with the letter W for writing. Is the film well written, clever, and cohesive? Are there plot holes, cringeworthy dialogue, or unmotivated moments just to squeeze in a gag or a sexual encounter? For Black Swan, or I guess, is it okay if I...
Yeah, go for it.
For Black Swan, I gave it a 10. I think that as far as... So, I think depending on the genre of movie, sometimes it's easier to write well.
Yeah.
And I think with this kind of movie, it's a little bit harder to really nail the dialogue all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive to me that Black Swan feels well written all the way through.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the writing chops of the team that they were able to make a movie that's so good.
Yeah.
Without that dialogue that you're kind of like, that doesn't really sound like something people would say.
Yeah, there's no cringeworthy dialogue whatsoever, I'd say. Like, everything feels like a realistic encounter, whether talking about, like, the roles that they're taking or talking about, like, outside of the, you know, dance hall or the company when they're just, like, hanging out.
Yeah.
But it's all still, like, revolving around this one subject, so no matter what they're doing, everything is still pointed and leaning towards the overall message and like the themes of the film.
Yeah,
which is so weird to think about, how like it could be so focused and pinpoint the entire time.
Yeah.
But also like boy does it keep you engaged, because like you never forget the intensity and like the anxiety being ramped up throughout the entire film. It just stays there the whole time because of this great dialogue. There are specific lines like Tyler's being beaten up by a baby right now.
She's got her hand in my ear. I don't like it.
Gross. But the specific lines like perfection is not always about being perfect. It's also about letting go. They're just like really cool sounding lines for one thing, but just like also again leading so much towards like the themes of the film that I can't help but love it. Like it's incredible. But yeah. Oh, also 10 for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Next is H for heart. Some movies revel in their own bad intent. We watch movies with heart to make us feel things. Does the movie compel us, inspire us, or make us think? Do we learn or grow from it, or is it forgettable and or too despicable for its own good? For kind of the same thing you just finished writing on, I gave the heart a 10 as well. I think that her internal and external struggles to achieve perfection, to kind of her own downfall, kind of like perfectly encapsulates this idea of, you know, being forgiving with ourselves, and not falling into ruin while chasing these obsessions. Yeah.
It's such a tragic, I also gave it a 10. It's such a tragically beautiful message, and like in how it's portrayed on screen. Yeah. Like you see her plight, you see her anguish and stress throughout the film, and it's never ending. And so you're constantly feeling for this character who all she wants to do is be perfect. All she wants to do is like, you know, be the best dancer she can be and to like please people and everything. But there's so many external factors going into it, like her abrasive director, Lily trying to like in her mind take her role, her mother being so smothering in a way, and all of that culminating in what ends up being like, you know, this again tragically beautiful ending. Yeah. And it honestly doesn't get much better than that. I feel so much for Nina, with Natalie Portman's portrayal of it, which we'll get to with acting in a second. And I feel, there's not characters I fully despise, but there are characters I'm very uncomfortable with, like Vincent Cassel's director, Thomas. He is so sleazy and slimy, but in a way that you could tell it's to further his art. Yeah. Which is so odd to me, but so interesting. And in a way, it feels kind of like even though it's before the time of the Me Too movement, it also feels like it could lend towards that commentary of that. But you know, it's such a dour but triumphant film in a lot of ways, and I absolutely love it. All
right, next is A for acting. This category covers the obvious performances by at least the primary cast members. For this, I also gave it a 10. I think that the acting is, you know, the bread and butter of Black Swan's performances. It's because sometimes there are times where like actors are fine, but they don't really excel, but that's okay because of the movie they're in. And in here it's like this movie excels because of like a lot of them, Mila Kunis and Vincent Cassel,
Barbara Hershey is amazing in this, but
Natalie Portman's performance especially I think just needs to be talked about more than it is.
And obviously like she won an Oscar, so like they clearly in the moment gave her that recognition, and I think that a lot of people who have seen the film clearly champion it, but like you were saying, like it's not as like discussed as like one of the best films of that decade or anything like that. It's or not film, sorry. Well, it should be, of course, but like best performances of that decade, let alone all time. Like the amount of emotion she's able to get across on screen. Yeah, and it's all so like it's so real,
also discreet and nuanced. Yeah, it's like from the small gestures to the big ones. There are just these moments that you see that it's like it feels impossibly like real.
One thing that watching behind the scenes footage and all that and interviews with the cast and actors, Natalie Portman's voice through most of the film is like this high pitched kind of light voice where she kind of kind of bit of a baby voice. And all of that was done on purpose because she noticed when like researching for the film that all these dancers kind of talk with that high pitched vulnerable voice. And so she put that into her character, and then like as it goes away throughout the film when she's becoming the Black Swan, that like even like when she shouts at her mom like, "I'm the Swan Queen," like that's so incredible. Like how she sheds all that and turns into her her antithesis to Odell or I don't remember the name of the Black Swan, or the Swan Queen, whatever, but she turns into the Black Swan, and that metamorphosis comes not only like on the screen, but in like the subtle parts that or the nuances that she puts into it. And honestly, one of the best acted scenes I have ever seen in my entire life is there's two of them that come to mind now. The scene where she figures out that she's a Swan Queen, she's calling her mom, and she's like crying tears of joy. What are you doing, Luna?
Agreeing.
I'm glad you love Natalie Portman as much as I do. But she's crying those tears of joy. And like it's so real and raw looking. And then when that fades, when she sees like what was written on the mirror, and then after she killed killed Nina or not Nina, Lily, and how she's freaking out after that, after she stabs Lily, and it gets into that moment where she's like reflecting on it and she's kind of freaking out and like hyperventilating and the tears are coming out and all that. And it has that beautiful cut, which we'll get into in the editing part of it. But oh my god, it's so real.
No, and that's more or less the moment that I was going to bring up too. Was and I think I brought it up last time when we were recording the episode about Aronofsky before, was that moment where she's like so distressed and you can tell that she's just freaking out, and then she sits down to apply the makeup for the next scene, and it's like,
I don't know if you guys can hear that. That's fucking wind going on outside. It's a really bad storm happening.
It's cold and stormy, which just as a general rule in Florida we're never prepared for.
It's very, very odd for our area.
But there's the scene where like she's crying in distress
after she like pulled the glass out of her,
and then she like brushes her cheek to apply some makeup.
And then she like gracefully brushes it off.
And it's such a subtle moment, and it's so beautiful.
Oh my god!
And it's like just in one,
but like it's heartbreaking.
And it's like in one swift movement from the point where she's like lifting up the brush to the point that she like brushes it, she becomes the Black Swan.
She goes from that like sorrowful, devastated face that looks so real to like, that like elegant, like
graceful and swan like the way, even like the mannerisms, the way that like she moves her neck and her head again, just something significant changes right there, like at the drop of a pin, and it is the coolest thing. Like her performance here is just one of the most lauded things that I can give this movie.
It is incredible. The only thing that I could say is like not the best acting throughout. I gave this a 10, by the way. I don't know if I said that. Is Winona Ryder. Sometimes she feels a little bit exaggerated when she's like, no, I'm not perfect. I'm nothing. I'm like, okay. I mean, like, it's not bad, but like, you know, compared to Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis and Vincent Cassel, Barbara Hershey, you know, it could be better. But yeah. Again, like, it's not anything that I would say takes away from the film.
Next up is P for production design. Do sets and costumes fit the genre and time period? Does makeup portray the situation, or does the beaten down hero still look perfectly coiffed while lying in the dirt? I gave this an 8. It's simple, and you know, it is what it is for, you know, a lot of you know, like a dance studio set and like the dance instructor's office set, you know, and so on and so forth. And it's like some of it's just kind of, it's fine, it serves purpose. And when it needs to be, it's great. But it does, you know, just because of the kind of movie it is and because of the sets that they have, some of it does start to feel a little bit bland or generic. So like a little bit shy of a perfect 10 for me personally, but I gave it an 8.
I gave this a 10 because watching the behind the scenes and like interviews and such with the production designer and Darren Aronofsky, when they talk about like what they put into these different sets, like how mirrors are so ever present in not only the dance studio, of course, but also in Nina's apartment. How there's like mirrors everywhere and all that is super cool. Nina's room, how it's all like still a child's room, even though she's in her like mid 20s.
Well, and that's the production design in the room there is really good.
It's beautiful,
and
but like in like a weird sense.
And I'm not really sure where to give this credit. Maybe either the writing or the directing. I'm not sure exactly where the best place for it would have been. But just the kind of like duality to the entire movie. That idea of like Mila Kunis being kind of like the darker, more adventurous side, and her being like naivety and innocence.
That goes to Aronofsky there. Because he wanted to blend it as like what's his name? The Double by the book, the famous book. And you blend it with the Swan Lake Ballet. That's how that turned out.
And then the same with like with their rooms, where hers is, you know, lots of childhood toys and lots of pink, and then her mom's room being, so it's like that kind of like all these pictures of Natalie Portman.
Like she's her world.
So it's like that balance between like childhood and adulthood, and how that consumes you, and you know, all these different like dualities throughout the film are like really excellent as well.
I absolutely love the costumes for the ballet, the sets that they have when they're putting on the final performance, because like Vincent Cassel says it's stripped back and raw, and then that really shows in the production design for the actual ballet being put on. And in his office and in his apartment, even though you only see them for such like fleeting moments, they're it's, you know, it's like they put a lot of like nature imagery and stuff like that, a lot of black and white and all that in there.
Next up is M for marketing. Many movies give away too much or not enough in trailers, use poor music choices, or just don't do enough to get people excited for the film. Were we excited to see it, and why or why not? I gave this a 7. I want most of those points to go toward like the posters. I think if you're watching, you can kind of see the poster behind Garrett, or at least one of them.
This is my computer's background.
Really? There's also the poster where it's like she's like porcelain. You can see like the cracks in her face and stuff like that. And so, you know, there's a lot of good like imagery and a lot of good like posters for it. I don't like the trailer. I'm not a fan of the trailer for Black Swan. Which for a lot of people is like their primary thought when deciding to go see a movie is whether the trailer makes them interested in it. And I'm not a huge fan of that, so I gave it a 7. But I think the posters were pretty good for it.
This is the only one that is not a 10 for me. I gave it a 9. I thought the trailer was all right, but oh my god, I love the artwork for the film. The images of ballet is such a beautiful art form in general, so that like it's kind of hard for it to not be so like majestic and fantastical looking like this right here. So I absolutely love that artwork, and the trailer itself would be like a 7 for me, but adding the artwork on top of it, definitely bumped it up.
Okay.
So
next up is A for audio. This category covers orchestration and/or song choices and whether they enhance or elevate the film, as well as sound design and sound effects. For this, I gave it a 10. I mean, yeah, a lot of it's recycled from Swan Lake, but well,
like I don't know if you've seen Swan Lake or if you've like listened to the orchestra itself. It's a lot of it is like condensed and like the Black Swan soundtrack is, and way less like filled than the ballet itself. Yeah. And after listening and seeing the ballet and then listening to the soundtrack and seeing Black Swan, I prefer the soundtrack for Black Swan. Yeah. Even though clearly it's a strong derivative from the Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. Yeah. But like I find it much more impactful for me.
No, it's like
the soundtrack.
When the music is that good, it's like it's derivative, but
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to be derivative of something like that? Whenever it's like it's so beloved and so good already.
And I also gave this a 10 as well. Audio wise, the soundtrack, I find it so refreshing that Aronofsky decided to use the Swan Lake music as like the setting and like the base for the film, and to kind of like and it was played, the songs in there, it's not every single song from the ballet, of course, but or else it'd be like 3 hours long, but it is every song that is put in there is placed in order as it is in the ballet as well. So that's like really cool. And also if you other films would totally not use like the actual ballet score or like a strongly derived version of it. Like another ballet film that we watched recently, Birds of Paradise, used a lot of like modern pop music, which was awful. Yeah, instead of like
it was not good.
Instead of like contemporary classical ballet music, which would put you much more into that world and setting. Yeah, like it does in Black Swan, and it's used perfectly.
And just as a side note, that episode is up. If you're interested in our thoughts on Birds of Paradise
and Dear Evan Hansen,
which Birds of Paradise feels derivative of Black Swan, which I think any modern ballet movie is probably going to be inspired by Black Swan in some way, but not nearly as good.
No, it's far from it.
But if you're interested in that, we do have that episode up on the channel.
But or on any streaming service you listen to your podcast on.
I'm always it's tough, like, and maybe I just don't listen to enough podcasts, or maybe that's just something that most podcasters don't do. But like, I always try to say, it's on your favorite podcasting platform, or but then I'm like, there's so many of those. Like, what's the best way to phrase like go to
someone's using some like niche podcast listening service.
To your podcast place of choice. It's like I don't know.
But yeah, like the audio is gorgeous. There's a lot of sometimes it's like kind of classical sounding cues in a way, which are super interesting, like something that you'd hear from like a like the original Halloween or something like that. Super cool. Like when the mom is revealed when she's doing her homework in her bed, it's like dun dun and all that. And a lot of how the music is cued in with the edit, which I will talk about later on in editing, because oh my god, the edit in this film. But all of that, the fluttering noises that are put in, especially during the final performance, to like kind of put you into that mindset of, oh, she's really coming into like turning into the Black Swan. This is like a true metamorphosis. And then also there's one moment in the film where I'm like, okay, that's like a bit, like the tiniest bit of a flaw that I've noticed, where some of Barbara Hershey's lines are like 80-yard, and it's I won't say the specific moment because I wonder if you'd be able to find it or if anyone else would really be able to find it. I'm sure they would be, but it's one of those things like it doesn't take it away because like clearly you have to do it, but once you notice it, you're never gonna not notice it ever again. Yeah. So every time it comes up, I'm like, oh, here it is. Yep. But it's not bad. But still, like it's that 10 audio wise, it's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. All right, so next is shooting. This is the cinematographer's job. Is the cinematography eye-catching? What color palette do they use, and is there a reason they use it to enhance the movie? Does the camera work enhance the scenes and make them unique? I gave this a 10.
You can't not give it a 10.
I mean, just everything about the cinematography for this is
Matthew Libatique, great Matthew Libatique.
It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it moves, the way that it focuses. One thing I was proud of, and like now the surprise is over.
Yeah.
But one thing I had pointed out when we were originally filming for the Aronofsky episode, was that I had pointed out the way that like the focus of the camera shifts more toward like other characters earlier on whenever she's dancing with people, because the primary complaint, like Vincent Cassell keeps coming in and saying like, you know, you're boring, we don't want to watch you, we're watching this person.
You stiff like a corpse.
Yeah. And the camera is actually focusing on these other characters, and she's either like off on the side of the frame a lot of times, or maybe she's out of focus a little bit. And then as she comes into her own and starts embracing her dark side and her black swan, she becomes the focal point of the scenes. And like, it's such a subtle thing, but it's so well done. And it's just, it's one of those like flawless things that like once you've seen the movie, it's hard to picture it any other way.
I completely agree. I also gave this a 10. The shooting is like the cinematography is like constantly kinetic and always moving, and you never get like you okay? You never get like a moment to rest. It's you know, the camera is moving with the dancers. It's like it puts you into like this disorienting but still like, you know, focused, beautiful feel, somewhat whimsical actually. Like when you're moving with the dancers, you feel like you're part of it. You're going along with this like this move, and it's shot in this very docu-verite kind of style where it's basically only handheld. And so like, you know, you feel like you're constantly there, and that was derived from Aronofsky's previous movie before this one, The Wrestler, which was not shot by Matthew Libatique. It was shot by Maurice Alberti, who was a great cinematographer herself. Okay. So that was kind of like that part of that came from her and Aronofsky. But then I think once Libatique came in, and he's done every single film for Aronofsky except for The Wrestler. So once he came back in, they were able to like work so well together and just perfect it. And the lighting in this film is beautiful. All the work that went into it, trying to like, you know, fix the shadows and everything, because there's constantly moving pieces. The camera's moving, the dancers are moving, everyone. It's a film about ballet, or partially about ballet, and it's set in that world. So there's constantly going to be movement. There's constantly going to be like these dance moves, and the film itself is like a dance with duality and perfection. And the cinematography really puts that at the forefront of the film, and it also like again gives you that disorienting feeling that Nina is feeling throughout. And oh my god, I never get tired of it. It's and I think this has kind of come through as like my preferred style, this like handheld raw feeling film. And it is done to perfection here in shots where they follow the dancers, where either they'll follow their arms and upper body, or they'll follow their feet, and you like see all the movements and everything put into it. Oh, it's so gorgeous. I can gush about the cinematography all day.
All right. Next up is D for directing. One of the most important elements. The director makes sure the movie comes together. Is the film effective at conveying a tone, message, or visual that the director intended? And can you identify them by their good or bad habits? This is a 10.
Yeah.
Like, it's, you know, considering the other things we've been giving 10s, it's like, this all came together. Surprising at all. This all culminated in this very calculated vision for Aronofsky. It's exactly what he wanted it to be in just about every way. And it's just kind of it's a high achievement. And it's, I mean, yeah.
There's I
don't have a whole lot more to say because it's like I could sit here and praise the cinematography and the audio, the writing, like all these things again, but it's like he took all of these parts and brought them together into like one of the most cohesive and masterfully made movies.
Like his vision is so not clear is I think the thing that I love the most, because like that this is part of his intention for you to not really know where it's gonna go and not really you're in the headspace of the character. But the fact that he can put you in that headspace so well, conveying it with visual, audio, and all that, all the stylistic choices that he decided to make and put into this only add to the film and only make it just that much better. Because like I'm sure the script itself would have been like really great, and like it was, because I've read the screenplay a couple of times, so it would have like the screenplay itself is already very good, and like coming with another director, like I'm sure it would have they would have made an all right film, probably, maybe, I don't know, but like all these, like the fact that Aronofsky wanted to do this, and this was his idea to begin with, he didn't like really write it, but like this was his idea and he like commissioned people to write it for him. Like the fact that like this all comes together and culminates in this beautiful film, all from his like own choices and like stylistic adventures and everything, just stuff that he wanted to try out. It's perfect. Like it really is. There's no other way to put it. Like he did it in the only way that could have made this film perfect. And like any other way, any other director would have probably messed it up. If you gave this to Spielberg, it would have been like the stupidest thing ever. But the fact that Aronofsky did it and he's able to get under your skin so well and just make you feel for these characters but like make you so uncomfortable in the process, like it's flawless in my eyes. His directing shines through as like a shining example of just like incredible artistic vision in every way possible. Set in another artistic world, showing his like his capabilities.
Next is E for editing. Does the movie have visual rhythm? Does it flow well, keep the viewer engaged, and scrub bad performances? Which angles do they decide to use when cutting between cameras? This is also a 10. It's like I was saying before, it's just masterfully crafted. The way that the scenes flow together, the way that they cut, or not even necessarily the way they cut sometimes, but the way they cut and pan, to show Natalie Portman's emotions. It's just it's almost flawless. I completely agree. Again, a 10. There are three. We could talk about the editing, and how like they edit together with the music, the visuals, and all that, and how well it like complements each other. But there are three specific cuts I would like to discuss, and they all come in the exact same like this like really small little window, and it's in the very like last like 20 minutes, I think, maybe 15 of the film. Well, there might be a few more, but like there might be like one more. But so the first one is in the moment when Natalie Portman sees Mila Kunis at her chair, and she's like dressed up in the Black Swan thing, and she's like, "Oh, that was rough. Maybe I should dance the Black Swan for you." After she had a fall on stage, and then she turns out to be the double, and so Natalie Portman pushes her into the mirror, and then the music kicks in with this insane score, and everything is timed up perfectly to the music. It is timed up flawlessly. The stab, and then it's my turn thing, and then she pulls her in, and it's going with this like this horn that's kind of like rising and like making the tension go up more. And then we talk about that. We talked about earlier how like the cut is, well, this is a different cut. This is one I was talking about, but you had a different one that I'm going to talk about in a second. And you see on her face, her eyes are red, and she's freaking out because she thinks she just killed Lily. So she's freaking out. She's like, like, hyperventilating, just completely terrified. But then the horns kick in the background. It's like dun, 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 and it's this like triumphant coming to like
showcase kind of music.
Yeah.
And you see her compose herself as quickly as possible. She starts breathing in. She stops and she looks like directly into the camera, and she's still like, her eyes are red. She's still shaking. But then like, and then it cuts to like the performance, and again, it's all timed perfectly to the music.
Yeah.
And then in a second later, after like a few more dances, she's like after like that moment with the song, she's behind the stage, or in like stage left or something like that, and she's like admiring as like the feathers pop out of her arms, and she's got this face and this look of pure glee, and she's so happy to be transforming into the Black Swan. And then more horns kick in, and it's like, again, this triumphant moment. Like, she's done it. She's turned into the Black Swan. She goes on, she does the coda, and gets this massive round of applause and standing ovation. And this, oh my god, I feel like I'm spoiling the entire thing, but I love it so much. And she goes off, and Vincent Cassel's like, no, get back on stage. You have to do your bows. And then she kisses him, and that's when the final music piece comes on to the screen. Yeah, it's going. It's like this whimsical, flowing sounding thing, and then she does her bows. She goes backstage. She's She's changing back into the White Swan outfit. Then that's when Lily shows up. Yeah, she knocks on the door, and then the music gets ominous. And then she talks to her for a second, and Natalie Portman has this like, oh shit look on her face, like, I thought I killed her. She goes and checks, and then like, as it's building up, the drums, the percussion is like going crazy, and then it makes that cut from her face where she realizes she stabbed herself to like the stab in her stomach just blooming. Oh my god. Yeah. And then back to her when she pulls it out, and then she's looking at it, and like it crescendos, and all the horns and drums and percussions are like going off at once. Yeah. And it's like her entire world is changing in that moment. She knows that she's like deeply messed up, and she's probably not going to make it, but she has to do this performance because this is her moment. Yeah. And her coming to terms with that on screen, and like in the edit, it's conveyed so perfectly. I think it was Andrew Weisberg that cut the film. He also cut The Wrestler, which he did amazing in. It is, oh my god, it's so beautiful, and I just gushed so much about it right then, and I'm so sorry for like giving all that out. No, but, like, no. You have to see it to really understand it.
I feel like you kind of leave spoiler territory when the movie's over. When it was like a decade or more.
True, yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with all that.
I've been wanting to talk about those edits like for months, you know.
And finally, R is for reflection. It's the most subjective of our categories, and simply a gauge of how much we enjoyed the film because of or despite the rankings we give in other categories. I gave this a 10. It really is almost perfectly made. It's distressing, disturbing, darkly funny. It hits everything just perfect.
Yeah. I also gave this a 10. Like, of course, you know, it's my favorite movie. I love it more than any other movie I've ever seen. And I didn't expect to. I expect to enjoy it, but I didn't expect to love it as much as I do. And the fact that I've seen it so many times and it has not gotten old at all, and I love it even more each time. Like it really reigns true. And I like I was saying earlier, I kind of choke up at the ending every single time thinking about how she made that sacrifice of herself in search of perfection. She thought that was above everything else, and it's so sadly beautiful and tragic. It's like Shakespearean in a way. I can talk about and love this movie all day. What's your final rating?
So the final WAPMASTER score for me ended up being a 95.
Nice. That was I feel like I gave it a 95 when we first were talking about it, and I've seen it a couple of times since then, and I'm like, nah, mine's a 99. You know, and I guess everyone could have deduced it by everything being a 10 except for one thing being a 9. So I think it's as close to perfection as you can ever get in a film. And man, like even now, like I don't know if I feel exactly right leaving it at a 99 and not giving it a 100, but you know, I'm fine with it for a year. Like yeah. But Black Swan.
So with that said, that was our WAPMASTER, our review for Black Swan. Next, we're going to be reviewing my favorite movie, which is Shaun of the Dead. Pretty much the same kind of film.
Yeah,
pretty
basically,
similar in most ways. Just some
especially tonally.
Some key differences though.
One of them being Natalie Portman's character is not Sean. It's not named Sean. That's the main difference in the film.
No.
Everything else, though.
It makes you wonder, like, why did they call it Shaun of the Dead?
You know, Vincent Cassel is the Nina, or sorry, not the Nina. I keep doing that. Is the Mila Kunis? Or not, no, I said Vincent Cassel. Nick Frost is the Mila Kunis of Shaun of the Dead. Man, I just messed up that whole thing.
Did you know, just as a fun fact, that originally, instead of, because they made their Cornetto trilogy, which is just kind of like their trilogy of like horror comedies based on different, like the first one is zombies, and then it was the occult, and then it was aliens. Originally, they were going to make like just a follow-up to Shaun of the Dead. But with this, it was going to be like Sean and Ed, just getting into these like
wacky adventures.
It was going to be like a horror comedy trilogy still, but it was going to be like Sean and Ed the whole time. They were just going to continue with these characters, and they eventually scrapped it because they liked this as a standalone film better.
It is amazing as a standalone film.
But originally, they were going to make another one where it was like still them. But, like, kind of assuming that, you know, Ed didn't become a zombie. And it was going to be called From Dusk Till Dawn. It was going to be vampires. And, like, you know, the trilogy we got is great. Like, I wouldn't give up Hot Fuzz. But
I would kind of love to see that.
I would love to see From Dusk Till Dawn.
I think that's something that would be fun to just kind of have Edgar Wright do after like a while. I guess maybe the 20-year anniversary of Shaun of the Dead, that's coming up soon. So you know, why not? 2024? Yeah, 2020. Well, I was on Amazon and I was gonna watch it on there, but it said it was like 2023 or not, 2003 was when it came out. So I guess it came out in the UK in 2003, but could probably US in 2004.
Or I could be off. I was wanting to think it was 04.
Well, I always thought it was 04 too.
Yeah.
So it probably just came out in the US in 04 and UK in 03.
So he's got 2 years to make that happen.
Yep, you can do it. Yeah, what if they're already doing it? What if they've been working on it this entire time? It's like a Boyhood situation. They've been doing it for like 15 plus years. All
right. So Shaun of the Dead. First up is W for writing. I'm going to condense it a little bit. I'm not going to explain each category for our second movie. For writing, I gave it a 10. It's pretty much like wall to wall, like gags and one-liners and things like that. Oh my god,
it's never ending.
And even in like the serious moments, it's like, you know, it might be like 2 or 3 minutes, and even normally in there's funny things happening. It's just not like one-liners as much as like clever editing cuts to make it still kind of funny and stuff like that. But it's just considering. A lot of movies like this will go for like a very broad humor, and they'll try, you know, if it's going to be wall-to-wall gags, they just put in as many different kinds of gags in there, thinking if they slap you in the face enough with different jokes, eventually you're either going to break down and start laughing at everything, or you're going to like enough of this broad humor that it won't matter how many you don't like, because there's going to be some good ones in there. This movie is so clever and so cohesive
all the time
in the fact that from beginning to end it's very funny without sacrificing
to just
dumb or broad humor.
We were laughing like constantly during the film. We laughed like basically the entire time. Because like even it's so perfectly done. Especially just in subtle moments, like after I guess I wouldn't call it super subtle, but after Simon Pegg's mom dies, and he's like freaking out, and what's his name? What's the other guy's name? Not Nick Frost's character, but
Ed.
No, I said not Nick Frost's character.
David.
Or
they call him Davs.
Yeah. When Davs is pointing the gun at Sean and all that. And then Sean like breaks the beer bottle and he's like holding up to them, and then Nick Frost goes and breaks the beer bottle and he's holding up to him, and then Dav's girlfriend's like, hey, that's not fair, and Nick Frost's like, oh yeah, you're right, sorry, and like he hands her the bottle and she points it at Sean. Like even in that serious moment, there's still like such good comedy written in there, and it's all so clever, like you're saying. Yeah, and it's not like they're not. It's not a parody, which is amazing. They're not making fun of zombie films. No, they're literally just setting this comedy in a zombie setting,
and the movie
is so perfect.
It's clearly the title is a play on Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, but that's the most parody you get out of the film.
Well, I mean, it is a loose retelling in the fact that it's these like survivors like holding up in one location, but it's not nearly the same movie, and it's not like a parody of that. No, but in its very loosest terms, it is kind of a like reimagining of Dawn of the Dead, but not in like a derivative way or like a parody style.
No, not at all. Like the tiniest little jokes put in, like with when Yvonne comes in and like they run into each other when they're like in the middle of the apocalypse, and she's got like the exact same like cast of characters in her group as Sean does. That's so clever and so funny.
Yeah, and it's just a throwaway thing. It's not like you haven't seen Yvonne before. Yeah, and it's not like she plays like a vital part in the movie. Yeah, it's for this gag.
Exactly.
Just another like just goofy fun note. All of the pairings in that scene are pairings of people that also work together. So like Yvonne's character is Simon Pegg's roommate in Spaced. Oh. And Martin Freeman and the other girl are both in The Office. And like so on and so forth, like down the line, each of their counterparts also works with their counterpart from other media.
And so it's like it's just, a lot of it is also just inside jokes, you know. But it's so like cleverly written and cohesive and all that. Everything is like everything is Chekhov's gun, like into the film. Like it's brought up before, it all ties back in together. Nothing is just said as a one-off. Yeah, really, like because everything comes back. Yeah, and funny.
Like, almost the entire first half of the film is its own like weird foreshadowing in some way, whether it be like remaking like shot for shot, but in the first scene he's kind of like a social zombie, like just going about his day and not looking at or caring about people, and then in the second like identical shot, it's actual zombies behind him. He still doesn't notice because he's just like being lazy and slacking his way through the day.
The writing honestly couldn't have been better. I think especially not only for what they're going for, but just in general, this is like perfect writing. And
each character is funny in their own way, but they all feel unique.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all like tropes in a way, but they're not like played up as tropes. Yeah. Because like you have like the best friend, the lazy best friend, the girlfriend, the lazy main character, and then like the antithesis of the lazy main character being Daphs and all that. Yeah. And his girlfriend. And they all play those parts, but they're written so refreshingly different from how they're written in like any other film. Yeah. And oh my god, it never gets old with how they are. But yeah, so that's a 10 without a doubt.
So next up is H for Heart. I gave Heart a 10 as well. I think that this is just about the most one of the goofiest ways you're going to see the complete like hero's journey from like lovable loser to like this just like massive character growth throughout the movie to become like this kind of honorable person that is worthy of the girlfriend that dumped him at the beginning, and so on and so forth. And it all works so well while also being such like a silly film. Yeah. That it is in its own weird way. It is kind of like inspiring. Yeah. To see this character's growth and development and becoming like a better person while also just being like wall-to-wall gags.
Yeah. And we were talking about it during the film, how you could tell they put literally everything they had into this film.
Yeah.
Because like they were just coming off of Space, like having made that show. And they're like, all right, we're three best friends. Let's just like write and star and direct and make this movie together. And they did. And they put everything they had into it. And it's so blaringly obvious. Even from like the small budget, you could tell that there's so much love and care in this film with every minor detail.
I don't know how it translates to American money, but if I remember right, it was made for like £4 million or something like that.
That'd probably like double in America. So like 8 million or something like that. But like... And you care so much about all these characters too.
Oh yeah.
Even if they're characters like Bill Nye's stepdad, like in that at the or not. Well, yeah. When I said Bill Nye's stepdad, it sounds like I'm talking about Bill Nye's specific stepdad. No, Bill Nye plays the stepdad.
This is British Bill Nye, not
British Bill Nye. Yeah, not Bill Nye the science guy. Not that guy.
Guy. This Bill Nye is Nighy. Bill Nye.
Is that how you spell that?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's weird. Anyways,
it's night, but with a Y instead.
Ah, there you go. But yeah, in his character, like you really care about him when he, and it's so fun because like in movies like most movies like this, you would expect them like that moment to be really cheesy when the stepdad is like about to die and he's like, I just want you to be strong, like I loved you and all that. But no, it's played off so well and done so well in this film. Yeah, because like the heart and meaning behind it really carries through.
Yeah, there's this heart. And there's like this split second where you genuinely do feel bad, where Sean is telling them to pull over because his stepdad just passed away.
And the acting is amazing there.
And he didn't like his stepdad, but he's still like, we need to pull over and have a moment for this because he feels bad for his mom and stuff. And so, you see this moment coming where like his stepdad has passed away. And he's, they stop the car and they're like, what do you want? And he tells his mom like, Mom, he's gone. And she's like, who's gone? Where is he gone? And he's like, no, he's dead.
And he's like, no, he's not.
Yeah, she turns and he's like, no, he's not. And then there's this quick cut where it cuts to the back seat and you see Sean like looking at his mom. And then he leans back and looks and he's a zombie. But he's just kind of sitting there like, ha. And it's like, even just those little like visual moments, which we'll get more to later, but it's like every single bit of this movie is done so well, the genuine and the comedy.
Yeah. So these are both 10s without a doubt, writing and heart. Yeah. Let's this kind of ties in with acting. Perfect segue.
Yeah. Perfect 10.
Perfect 10. Me too.
Yeah. It's the not just the acting between everybody, but like you were saying, these kind of stereotypes and archetypes that everybody plays into. Yeah. They play them so perfectly.
They do.
While also having just about perfect chemistry. And it's like you were saying earlier, I think it helps that Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and Edgar Wright are all just like BFFs. Yeah. And Simon Pegg and Nick Frost's relationship is like semi-biographical. They were like actual roommates. I think like back in college or like shortly after college or something like that. And so the chemistry that they've got, like in not just in this trilogy, but like in Spaced and stuff like that, is just actually the way they
genuine,
work. Yeah, like they're basically just playing themselves with different names. I mean, I'm exaggerated obviously for the movie, but the like they that was actually kind of like how things were for a while, just like living together, playing video games, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and that chemistry really shines through in the film.
No, it translates so well. Like as far as like comedy duos, it doesn't get any better.
Yeah. And it's so fun to watch them progress and like play different characters throughout each of the trilogy. Yeah. Like in Hot Fuzz, they play like, I guess the Nick Frost is still a bit of an oaf, but Simon Pegg is like completely different. And whereas Nick Frost in Shaun of the Dead is made to be like kind of like a gross, kind of crass person, him in Hot Fuzz is like so. He's supposed to be like he's lovingly stupid. Yeah. And then Simon Pegg is such a stickler and just like a really like intense guy. Yeah. And then flip
even further in The World's End.
In The World's End, they just flip how their characters were in Shaun of the Dead. Yeah. And it's so fun to see them playing those different characters. I remember when I watched At World's End the first time, I was like, oh my god, it's literally just the opposite of Shaun of the Dead. Like, and I found that so fun, even though it's something that should be so obvious. It's just seeing it actually on screen is really fun.
And the fact that they don't lose any of that chemistry or fun doing
no, not at all.
They still play off of each other so well.
Yeah. And not only that, but I think Simon Pegg legitimately gives like some good dramatic moments in this film too. Like when he's screaming at Nick Frost to pull over and all that, and he's freaking out in the back of the car. Yeah. Or like when he's talking to his dying mother and everything, and freaking out at Davs. Like it's incredible. Like he gives a really strong performance, and so does Ashfield. Something Ashfield, is it Lindsay Ashfield?
I think so.
She does a really great job too. Yeah.
No, the genuine acting is all really good. The comedic acting is all really good. And there are like these signature moments where I was kind of pointing them out to you as we were watching the movie. Yeah. I'm like, just look at his face here, or like look at his reaction. Yeah. And it's like they're kind of these moments where it's like they take like a really big moment and like really underplay it. Yeah. Like whenever they accidentally kill the first zombie, and Nick Frost's face is just kind of like almost like just, all right. and then later there's like this really goofy moment that shouldn't play well, where the zombie like comes through their front door, and Simon Pegg, he's got like, oh! Yeah, it's like this like just hamming it up, overacting. Like his face is so exaggerated. He's got like the fingers like wiggling in the air and all this. But it just works.
It does. It really does. You believe it.
Acted so well and so much fun that like you can't help but just fall in love with these characters and have fun with them.
Yeah, and that like it's in spots with what's it called? With like the record moment when they're just like going through the records and like, no, not that one. Oh yeah, throw that one and all that. I want to talk about that more with directing and everything, but oh my god, they're always just so funny but genuine. Yeah, like it's always great. Let's move to production design.
Production design for P. I gave this one a 10 as well. I think that this one, I think everything felt a little bit more distinct. I was talking about like with this one faltered just a little bit for me with Black Swan, because some of the sets and designs are supposed to be a little bit more bland. Yeah. And I feel like in here, even kind of like the more bland sets, like their living room, for example, which should just be like a normal set, is still filled with so much character and so many little like just bits, you know, that it becomes like so unique in its own right. Where it's like it could just be this little living room where they sit and play their PlayStation or something like that. Yeah. They drop these little bits, these like obscure posters that, you know, they had just collected over the years, you know, like it's like it kind of moves things along and makes these settings feel like lived in and significant and unique. Yeah. But then you move up to like the set pieces that actually need it, like the design of
the Winchester.
The Winchester, or even like the people, like the zombie makeup and stuff like that. And every single bit of it feels just so well thought out that there's never a moment that you look at and you're like, this is kind of bland. This doesn't really work. Like it's all so unique. This is like a world that's lived in and feels grounded, but also a world that feels just slightly like not ours.
Yeah. There was specifically in the, like, we were talking about how like even though the budget is so low, because they use the city around them and like this, you know, grander, like nicer architecture with the city around them, so well that it made the film's budget seem so much bigger than it actually was. I gave the production design an 8. Okay. So it's kind of like, it's a little similar to like how you felt about Black Swan. Yeah. I guess we kind of like flip-flopped on that, which I love the production design. I think, like you were saying with the living room and all that, I love how they did that. Yeah. Because like that genuinely does feel like just these dudes' living room. Yeah. Like, this is just how they live. But in other areas like the Winchester, we see it more towards the end, but a lot of the time it feels like it doesn't carry as much character as the living room and like their house and all that. I feel like it, and a lot of times I don't really notice it that much when I'm watching it. Like I feel like we don't get like a ton of time to really like delve deep into the production design with a few of the scenes, but it doesn't make it bad. It doesn't mean the production design is bad at all. I still love it. I think that the design of like the mart that he worked at, was it Safe Mart or something like that?
Yeah, 4A Electronics.
Yeah, 4A Electronics. That's right.
Which is a callback to Kin for it.
Yeah, which is something we noticed while watching it. That was so fun.
Yeah.
But that area, even though it was so quick, I thought it was like the perfect amount of like staleness, like Office Space kind of thing, where like it's clearly super boring and he hates being in there, but it's like it's conveyed very well through these quick shots of the place. So I think that it does a great job in that respect.
Like the newspaper, where he slaps down the newspaper and slaps his finger on the restaurant that he's calling. It was because before he says, I'm going to go to this place that has all the fish or something like that. Yeah. And the restaurant is called like Fulci's Fish, the place that has all the fish or something like that. That's actually what it's called. But also, just in reference, Fulci was a pretty well regarded like horror and zombie Giallo filmmaker, which is just another callback. If you watched or heard last week's episode about Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho and his love for Giallo filmmaking, there's kind of a callback there, not just to zombie movies, but Giallo zombie horror specifically.
Speaking of Giallo, real quick, I brought up Vortex, Gaspar Noé's new film. You're never going to guess who the lead actor in that film is.
I am not going to guess.
Dario Argento is the lead of that movie.
I don't think I've ever seen him act.
I don't know if he has. I don't think he has. He said that Gaspar Noé was saying that he had to like convince him.
Really?
And it was but he's the lead and he's like 81, I think.
Is it good?
It's got good reviews.
That's
and
fascinating.
It's it's Gaspar Noé. I feel like he'd get a good performance out of anyone, but still, that's so cool, right?
It is. I didn't realize that was a thing.
Me either. But it's a thing now, so I feel like we both kind of got to watch Vortex now, don't we?
So next is M for marketing. For marketing, I also gave it a 10. I think that the trailers, maybe... I don't think the trailers give away the best of the comedy that the movie has, but I feel like it shows you exactly kind of what you're in for. It lets you know the kind of movie that you're going to watch. And I think the posters are great. I like kind of that stylized, we're not showing it, we're showing one for Black Swan, but
I'll put posters on the thing for like for you.
Okay. But yeah, the posters that they've got that show, especially the one like with the window, the poster that shows like the zombies behind the window at the Winchester and stuff like that, I think kind of give you an idea like exactly what you're in for. I think it's the marketing for this movie was good at showing you what kind of movie you were gonna get without giving away the best parts of the movie, which I feel like is a problem that we've got, especially here in America, of trying to hype people up by showing them a lot of the big stuff from a movie at the expense of, well, you already know that's coming.
Yeah. I gave the marketing a 7.
Okay.
I'm not crazy about the trailer. I think the trailer I watched does the thing that I don't like, where it has like the voiceover. It's like, in a world. And it literally says in a world in like a little... text screen on there. I'm not crazy about that, but it does get better as it goes along. But that if I saw that when it was coming out, I wouldn't be super excited about it. But I do like the posters. If it was just the posters, I'd give it like an 8 or a 9 based on those. But yeah, because of the trailer, it kind of does take a little bit away from me for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to move on to
next up is A for audio. Audio, I think, is a pretty solid. That's 10
obvious.
For me.
Yeah.
Not just, I mean, the incidental music and the orchestration is really good, and it portrays the scenes well. But especially the music that they use throughout the movie, like purposefully,
diegetically.
Whenever they're using Queen, but like all in sync, they're in the Winchester to like beat up zombies and stuff like that. Even some of the stuff that's like whenever they've got just electro It's not like a specific song, but they've just got electro record.
Yeah.
That they're like
tabletop spinning.
Yeah, they're like spinning it and bouncing it back and forth and stuff like that. And it's like scenes like that are all so good because of the music choices that they've picked to go with them. They would very easily be like a throwaway moment, but they use them so well.
Definitely, yeah.
And then the sound effects too.
Oh yeah.
The sound effects are a little bit purposefully over the top, but they all work so good.
Yeah.
The like the swiping sounds and the thunks and things like that, they're just a little bit exaggerated. They shouldn't be quite that loud or quite that exaggerated, but they all just work against this like horde of zombies.
They really add to the comedy in that way. I also gave it a 10, and you basically covered literally everything I was gonna say. Like I was gonna bring up the swipes, and I switched the scene, and then you're like, oh, and also the swipes, and I was like, oh, okay, well he's got it, I guess. But the swipes add a lot to the comedy, like that little like noise that he does when it goes to the cuts and everything. All those exaggerated noises of like the spoon and tea and stuff like that. Absolutely love that. And the music choices, of course, like you were saying, like he's got like the racing song that Nick Frost plays when he's like in there, and the fact that it's all done diegetically, or at least most of it is done diegetically, is so cool. But even the score, the original score on its own is like really, it's understated. But it's like it's really good for this kind of like comedy zombie film. Like it works really well. Yeah, it does ramp up the tension, but it doesn't make it feel like too tense. You know, and that's done too perfectly to a T there. Like there's not much more you can say about that, and that also ties into the editing, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. Next up is S for shooting. I gave this one a 10. I think that there is camera work done in this movie that isn't done half as well in movies with like 10 times its budget. No,
not at all.
It's so wonderful to see all of these tracking shots. And like, I think I mentioned it earlier. I know we talked about it during the movie, but the way he recycles these gorgeous like tracking shots and stuff.
I was going to save that for directing.
Oh, we can talk about it there too.
Okay, you talk about it here and I'll talk about it there.
Okay. But the way he like recycles these like perfect tracking shots and he does them like flawlessly every time. Yeah. But they enhance the movie. Like not just visually, but also like with the plot. They move forward the film while also just being great.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And the way that these shots are framed too, the way that, you think that this is just a stationary camera when they're filming a certain segment, and then all of a sudden it pans or flips around or something like that, and you realize, they're utilizing this camera for like different angles, but it's all done so well. It's like they're taking this shot that you think is stationary, and then all of a sudden, okay, it's a door cam, but now they're flipping back without ever cutting. And it all just works. Yeah. In a way that should make bigger budget movies envious.
Yeah, it should. I feel like a lot of this was also done for budgetary reasons. Like a lot of times in movies when they have a lower budget, they tend to use like longer takes and all that because like you can't just keep using the film. And this movie does long takes and tracking shots. It's so funny because Black Swan is like most of it is based around tracking shots, following Nina and all that. And Shaun of the Dead, it's just like that too. There's a ton of tracking shots following Shaun, and it's so interesting the way that he's able to pull it off. How he'll like the camera is constantly moving, but it's like controlled and flowing. Yeah. In Black Swan, it's like unsettling and it's bouncy and it moves a lot. But in Shaun, it's very much like very fluid.
They both elevate the character development and character emotion in their own distinct way. Very much so. Yeah.
You kind of like you get to see Shaun's day and go throughout his day. This is just like a bad day for Shaun. And one of my favorite track shots, probably my favorite tracking shot, not only the ones that you were talking about before when we were talking about how he the shot where it shows him like going to the convenience store and then it does it again and all that, how they reuse that. I think that one's amazing, but my favorite one is probably like when they go to what's her name? What's the girlfriend's name? I forgot. Liz's house or her flat, and it's like shot through the window of, like through the opposite window of the car, and it's like showing Simon Pegg on the other side, like talking through the window to them, and they drive off, and the camera stays, and it pulls up, and it goes into a tracking shot following him to the door. That is so cool. That's so cool.
Yep.
And like, and it's choreographed and done so well. And the lighting in this film is like, it's like, it's weird because it's not like some insane mood lighting. It's just like the most natural, just like normal feeling lighting, like what you'd expect a normal day in the UK to like look like.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that. You know, the cinematography just can't get much better. The way that, I'll talk about this during editing, but like it's shot immaculately. The camera moves so perfectly and so precisely. Yeah. Almost kind of like Scorsese, how he uses like the fluid, like the swipes and movements in his shot to like switch around. Like it's done so well, so much like that. You can tell his how he derives from his heroes and all that, Edgar Wright. Yeah. And he really puts it into the film cinematography wise, like visual wise, and oh my god, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful, but in a wacky way.
Next up is D for directing. I gave directing a 10, and I think this is like the showcase for him. You know, it was his first like big budget movie. Or, I mean, I guess relatively
his first movie in general.
Yeah, it depends on what you call big budget. But it, you know, it was his first movie. Before that, it was Spaced, and that's what kind of gave him the fans and the power he needed to make this movie. And I still don't know if he's ever topped that or if he ever will. This is just such a showcase for his mind and his creativity and what he can do. And it's just so wonderful to see everything come together in such a way that hits everything so perfectly. Yeah, like definitely. The story is great, the humor is great, the cinematography is great, the editing is great, like the music, like all of these different facets come together to form such a cohesive whole that I don't know if he's gonna be able to top himself.
I find 99% of directors wouldn't be able to top anything that Edgar Wright makes, not even Last Night in Soho. Yeah. But this one specifically, and I do agree with you that this is probably his best directed film. Yeah. Although right now, I have to rewatch the entire trilogy, but right now Hot Fuzz is my favorite of the trilogy. I think the directing really comes through in this one. Yeah. Like you were talking about with the recycled shots, how he'll like go over and do that again. Yeah. The freshness and the ideas of that. And like being like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Oh, we should do this because I don't see that a lot in movies. Yeah. It's super unique. And the way Edgar Wright uses are you okay? Yeah. What happened? What'd you do? I dropped the pacifier. No. Okay, but the way Edgar Wright uses insert shots is so fun and so different because like insert shots, you think about them and it's like, oh, you know, it's just, you know, a quick cut to show like what this person's doing and all that. No, he does it so differently. And and in a day and age like now when everyone's so used to having Edgar Wright around and like Edgar Wright copies and stuff like that, thinking back to like when this was first done, you would never seen something like this before. This was so new and so different. Yeah. And it's purely Edgar Wright. And he's such a distinct vision and voice in this film. And but he's still able to tell like different stories in each of his films too, with different morals and different, you know, different principles going into them. Yeah. And I think that his intentions behind it are so pure and fun, where he's not making fun of things. He's just like, I like zombie movies. I like all these movies. Yeah. I'm just gonna make one, but I'm gonna make my version of it. And he does that. Yeah. And it's so unique and refreshing. I absolutely love it. Yeah. 10. Which is what has always been the case for me too, and that's why I've always loved what he's done up until Soho. Which, if you haven't seen that, that's also up. Last Night in Soho is his most commercial. Yeah. We don't know if I don't think either of us really dislike it, but we're definitely very disappointed by it. Yeah, considering what you were just saying about how he takes these movies that he loves and then kind of says, that was great, but I'm going to do it my way. Yeah. And he does, and it's always such a distinctive voice and so wonderfully done. Whereas it feels so muddled. The directing feels so muddled in Last Night in Soho. Yeah. But we covered that already. Yeah. Go watch that one.
Next up is E for editing. I also gave editing a 10. He's got this like signature thing.
This is the easiest one.
Yeah. And he's got like this signature thing he does with those like quick cuts where it's like bam, bam, bam. You see like shoes being tied, and then he's brushing his teeth, and then he spits in the sink, and then he's ready to go. And it shows like his entire morning in the span of like 2 or 3 seconds. Yeah. And that's kind of like his signature thing, at least. If not throughout all of his movies, at least especially through the Cornetto trilogy. And you still see sparks of that in
Baby Driver and
Scott Pilgrim.
Not in
Last Night in Soho, but that's very much on purpose. That would not fit with the giallo filmmaking he was going for. Yeah. But no, editing is perfect. Yeah. Not just those. I mean, that's what I brought up because that's what always sticks out to me. I love those quick cuts that he does. Me too. Yeah. But just in general, like just his style of like these super creative, fun cuts. Another one that I pointed out was when he stumbles home drunk and their roommate is yelling at them about, you know, growing up and being a man and how they're both losers and how he hates them. And then he storms off to bed. And so then Sean goes to the kitchen and you see him like half drunkenly like scribble these things like really exaggeratedly on the whiteboard on the fridge, and then stumble back and fall into a chair, and then all of a sudden the whole room lights up and it's daylight outside, and he stands back up and starts his day, and I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. It's so good.
It's like it's wacky, but it's like it's a very beautiful wacky. Yeah, where like it's so precise and so thought out. Yeah, that you can't help but just be in awe while watching it. If you're like a big film nerd piece of shit like us, I mean, the type of people that would like ruin a movie for you.
The movie is so wonderful and charming.
You're gonna enjoy it no matter what.
Like pretty much anybody.
I don't think there's anyone that wouldn't like this movie.
But I think having an appreciation for like film and filmmaking techniques just makes you love it more and more. Yeah. Instead of starting to see the cracks in it, you start seeing like how well done it really is. Yeah. But even if you don't appreciate those things and you just go in looking for a good time, you get that too.
Yeah, without a doubt. And with the editing, I also gave it a 10. Obviously, every Edgar Wright movie, with respect, without Last Night in Soho, I would give a 10 editing wise. Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah. He is so masterful and so knowledgeable about what he wants and knowing exactly like his exact vision in there with those quick insert cuts, like the ones that last just a couple seconds. That keeps the pacing so consistent and so fluid. Whereas like if you have a movie, and I think At World's End might be the longest one of the, I don't know, how long is Hot Fuzz? I don't know. But like, even if it's a movie that's longer, like maybe Baby Driver or something like that, because you have those quick edits and those moves, it will keep the pacing going so quick and so fast and fun. Yeah. But it's like, it's not where it's leaving you wanting anything more. You are definitely filled to the brim with like this amazing filmmaking, but it's so kinetic and fluid and just engrossing in there. And we talked about it while watching the film. How incredible it would have been to be in the theater and see this in theaters when it first came out for the first time, being like, oh my God, what is this? Yeah. Because like, you know, by the time I saw this film, I'm 22 and this film came out when I was 4. So 4 or 5. Yeah. So, you know, by the time I was like getting into film and all that and seeing all these interesting things, Edgar Wright's editing style and all that had been like borrowed and taken from so many different filmmakers that it's like it's not as, you know, crazy and outlandish as it was before. Yeah. But before then, like I said before, it had like never been done before, like ever, not that I know of at least. So like to see it happen for the first time and be there to witness it must have been just like an insane event for anyone. Yeah. I really envy them, people that were able to see this in theaters.
Oh, yeah. And finally, R is for reflection. Obviously, I gave this one a 10.
I gave it a 10 too. Yeah.
There's not a lot more, you know, it's like whenever you talk about your favorite movie, hopefully you're going to give it a 10. Yeah. I
was saying while we were watching, like I'm like while we were just enjoying the film, I was like, man, this is going to, I don't know, how am I going to not give this entire film just a perfect score? Like, and like there were things that like I was able to kind of, you know, I had to bump down a little bit, but like this is again, like Black Swan, almost as close to perfection as you can get with a film, especially genre wise.
Yeah. So I don't know if you noticed, but my final score is 100.
Is it really? Yeah, I didn't notice.
So I gave it a 10 across the board. Kind of like you did with Black Swan. The only one I thought about marking down a little bit was the marketing.
Yeah.
But I think it's all just so charming and endearing, you know, like even looking back at like the posters and the trailers and stuff, I'm like, no, I enjoy all of that.
Yeah.
There's not a part of it where I'm like, that was just fine.
Yeah. I gave my final score is a 95, like what yours was for Black Swan.
Perfect.
So that's so cool. Cause like I could go to a 100 with Black Swan without a doubt.
Yeah.
You know what? First time ever, we're changing a WAP. My score is a 100 for Black Swan.
All right.
So we completely flipped. I don't know why I'm actually changing my phone. I don't really need to, but just for my own sake. But yeah, both 100 on our favorite movie and 95 on the other one.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that worked out great. So those were our 2 WAPMasters of the week. We did Black Swan. We did Shaun of the Dead. Our favorite movies and our
I think altogether a couple of our favorite movies in general.
Yeah,
like
even opposite. Yeah. Like, you know, I have a lot of respect for Black Swan, one of my favorite movies, and I feel like Shaun
of the Dead very much so. Yeah.
You know, not obviously Shaun's my favorite, but I'd say Black Swan is at least, if not my top 5, at least in my top 10.
Yeah, I'd say the exact same thing for Shaun.
Yeah. But yeah, those were our topics for the week, our favorite movies, and we asked each other a few questions.
We might actually I think we just should do the Cornetto trilogy sometime soon.
Yeah.
That would just be so fun just for us, really, Shaun, honestly.
Yeah, while watching Shaun, we talked about just doing the complete Cornetto trilogy and kind of ranking them and doing WAPs on the other 2 to kind of cover the whole trilogy, which I think is great because it's really a showcase for all 3 of them. Simon Pegg, Nick Frost. Right. But all 3 of them and just their camaraderie and what they can create together.
Man, it's like if you haven't seen these films, like any of the Cornetto trilogy, they're gonna be some of the most fun experiences you will ever see watching a film. Yeah, like without a doubt. I challenge anyone to find to not have fun while watching any of these films.
Yeah. No, they're all really great. Still, Shaun's my favorite, but no, all 3 of them, very excellent.
Yeah. Do we have anything lined up for next week?
I don't think we have anything set in stone. We had some ideas. We had talked about just doing another, because when we started out, the first few weeks, we had this idea of doing more retrospectives, looking back on filmographies of new directors and upcoming directors, things like that. And so we had done Aronofsky, we had done David Lowery. We were doing these retrospectives where we watched all the movies of a director and then talked about our favorites and ranked their movies and so on and so forth.
It's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing those episodes and those were some of the ones we had to scrap, unfortunately. But we were talking about doing more of that again, kind of getting back into that groove of maybe picking up some new ones.
Maybe not doing someone like Aronofsky or Lowery who
maybe
have
less established.
Upwards of 5 or 6 films. I know Aronofsky has 7 and I think David Lowery has 5 or 6. So someone with less films.
Yeah, focusing on one of these people.
Like Barry Jenkins.
Yeah, Barry Jenkins. These promising directors that just have 2 films out or 3 films out. Something where we can feasibly watch these movies within a week without stressing ourselves out too much.
I think also we should give more attention to foreign films recently. I think that'd be really cool because there have been a lot of beautiful films that have come out lately. A lot of French ones specifically that I've been noticing. But
especially you know, the like we were talking about earlier, the psychological ones, the horrors, the thrillers, stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff like that.
I'm all about that.
Yeah. So we could we'll figure it out. We'll do let's just say right now that we'll do a retrospective on a director for next week. How about that? All right. But we'll figure out which one within the next couple days and then have it done and out to you guys soon.
Yeah. And as always, we'll have some sort of opening segment, whether it be a ranking or a game or just more questions. We'll have something for you at the beginning as well. Yeah. But until that time comes, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please check out the other episodes if you did.
Follow us on Letterboxd and Instagram and stuff like that.
Yeah, anywhere really. We try to we're not necessarily like super active on social media, but we try to at least update once a week as far as what we've been working on and what our new episodes are and things like that. So, you know, find us wherever you like to be. Yeah. We are wherever you like to be. Yeah. You know, on Instagram, on Facebook, in your bed. What
was that last part?
I said on
in your head?
Instagram, Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
But until next week, we hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you then. Bye.
Bye.